Great. Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Northampton Board of Health. It's Thursday, February 20th. It's 5:33 p.m. We'll start with public comment session. Anyone who would like to speak in public comment, you are allowed 2 minutes. And you'll have to raise your electronic hand. You'll do that by going down in your reactions tab in your Zoom menu. Because we can't see you, your videos are off. So if you would like to speak in public comment, please raise your electronic hand or react in some way. In the raise hand feature, I see Paul. Anybody else? Okay, Paul.
I can time, Joanne.
Yes. Oh, great. Thank you for being the timer. 2 minutes. Paul, you're on. Go ahead. Can you unmute?
Hello, greetings.
There you go.
My name is Paul Fenn. I'm from Haydenville, and I work with a company called Local Power. We work with municipalities, mostly on sustainability and energy, and a focus on, in part, on methane emissions from sewage and landfill waste. And so we do both research and policy development. And we've been, doing this for 30 years around the country. We just happen to be based here, and so we got really focused on doing some local work when we learned about the forever chemicals crisis in every state, in every city in America, and realizing the magnitude of that crisis. And first, just focused on methane, but learning in back around 2018 about forever chemicals and PFAS compounds in landfills, and started looking at, as we were working for various jurisdictions, looking at how to reduce landfill incineration and dumping of sewage. We learned that many municipalities currently are running their leachates from legacy landfills in particular, but also from open landfills through their waste treatment plants. And we learned from EPA research that those treatment plants do not remove or in any way beneficially affect PFAS concentrations, and that in effect, when those treated sewage materials are dumped, that the PFAS compounds in fact come out worse and worse. Essentially an unknown compounds are coming out. So we learned that basically every town and city in Western Mass is doing this pretty much. Some of them dehydrate the sewage and send it to landfills. Most are just dumping into the Connecticut River. And so we've come to realize that the Connecticut River is being contaminated on a widespread basis. And there really is no well, basically, there's no direction coming from above. The state of Maine is trying to deal with this. Probably my time's running out. But in a nutshell, I'm hoping to make a presentation to the board on this subject at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very interesting, and I think we'd love to hear some more about that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for public comment? I don't see any other hands. I'll just say one more time, you can't be waving your hand because we can't see you, so you'll have to use raise your hand function under the react button. Anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none, we will move on. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to open the Board of Health meeting?
Move to open the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Cynthia?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Joanne? Yes. Thank you. This is the Northampton Board of Health meeting. This meeting is being recorded. Tonight for board members, all of our board members are present. There are 4 of us. It's Dr. Suzanne Smith, Janet Grant, Dr. Cynthia Swopis, and myself, Dr. Joanne Levin. Meredith, would you introduce the staff, please? And yourself?
Sure, yep. Meredith O'Leary, Health Commissioner for the DHHS. We have Director of Environmental Health, Amy Hutchins on screen with us tonight. We have Public Health Nurse Jen Brown with us tonight. We have Scott Hoiberg, who is our Executive Assistant, and we have Kelly Constantine, who is our Administrative Assistant. I don't think I'm missing anyone.
Great, thank you. So first on our agenda is a data update from Jen Brown, Public Health Nurse, just to give us some data about what's happening in our city. Jen?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having the public health nurses speak. We really appreciate that. I'm Jennifer Brown, one of the 4 public health nurses for the City of Northampton DHHS. Tonight, I would like to talk about flu and bird flu, and thank you to the person who's going to share my slides. So I have 5 slides, and I'm going to try to get through them rapid fire because I know you have a big agenda. So if we can get the first slide up. But I'll just start talking. So as they get published, we have been, oh, thank you, Kelly C. It's that double click. Yeah. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we've all been reading about this intense flu season this year, but I think anecdotally, we've all been hearing from friends about how people have been getting the flu and getting really sick. It's really sort of surprised people. So I'm asking anyone on the board or here that wants to speak up and say something. I really like to hear your input. Here's some quick stats I put together from MAVEN, which is the Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiological Network. That's what the public health nurses use for surveillance and case management. On the left, I compiled some cases. These are confirmed MAVEN influenza cases. It's not capturing all the cases, but that's what we have. And I put them into just groupings from 2022, 23, 23, 24, and 2024 and 25. And you can see that grouping of 2024. We're already, we're just 2/3 into February, and already it's 71 cases, much more than last year and obviously the previous year. Together, we're at 140 total this year, 116 last season, and 103 previously. Then on the right, I compiled the HPHSSC. That's the 14 case towns that we provide case management for. So that was just kind of fun to put up there. At the bottom there, I grabbed the influenza A H1N1 and the A H3N2. Those are the predominant variant strains that are circulating this week. If the slides can stay up, I think that's best, if that's possible. Just the more I dug into bird flu and regular flu, I feel like the more I looked, the more I sort of begin to understand how much I didn't completely understand. But we used to think that that only type A infections were very severe, but studies have shown that both types A and B can result in similar numbers of hospitalizations and deaths. But in children, the influenza B can be much more severe. But as we talk about influenza and bird flu, we'll see that influenza A really has been identified in animal as the big reservoirs, and that's the potential source of pandemics. So the 4 pandemics we've had in the last century, 1918, 57, 1968, and swine flu, were all caused by type A virus. If we can have the next slide, if that's possible.
It's
Have
like
we-
Kelly's left. Yeah,
Kelly and Meredith.
Maybe she's signing on again.
I think they
She might
got
be
bounced
having-
off.
Yeah.
Okay.
The health department has lost internet, so that's why that Kelly, Meredith, Scott, and your slides, Jen,
Oh,
are
no.
offline right at the moment.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So they're
Yeah, we lost Meredith
Hold on.
too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I do? Who sent them to me?
What's that?
No,
Oh.
just you and Phil.
Okay. Did I lose people or can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you.
You're
Oh,
fine.
okay, my screen went,
can
so,
check there, but I'm
Department of
pretty
Health
sure
is
the
having
screen fell. I
trouble.
was
If you want to
double
email
checking.
them to me, I can put them up.
I can try to share my screen. I feel like I don't have the double click function quite right, but I'm gonna try. Is that all right? You let me
Oh,
know?
you're at home. Sure, give it a try.
Okay. All right, let's see. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this, I don't think.
There you go. Getting there.
Well, that's us. And
Now you need to share the correct screen. Where are your
yeah,
slides?
um, we'll get there maybe.
Yeah, open your slides and then move them into that space.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is that gonna be okay?
Yep, that will be fine.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. So there was that one that we saw with the Maven cases. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Here are slides that are showing Massachusetts level of influenza-like illnesses. If you look at the DPH website where I got this from, the whole map of Massachusetts is just a dark crimson, so it's very high. That's increased from 2 weeks ago. Some of the reasons that the flu season may be so high and bad this year, and this is from the CDC and your local epidemiologist. Sometimes we just have bad flu years. It happens every couple of years. Also, vaccination rates are down for adults and children. The children, that being lower is obviously very troubling. That's a trend that we don't want to see. In Northampton, 48% of all residents have been vaccinated against the flu, and that's compared to 38% of Massachusetts. So we have a higher rate here in Northampton. Massachusetts in 2021 was 45, so it's dropped from 45 to 38 for the whole state. The other reason for the high rate is one possible factor is called viral interference. So this is an epidemiologist, Dr. Gordon from University of Michigan, says that this is a phenomenon that occurs when the presence of one virus pushes out other viruses. So there's some non-specific immunity or some protection. And then the other reason is that the match between the flu and the vaccine is just okay. I don't think I was able to land on a specific number or percentage where we are here, but in the Southern Hemisphere, I think it was 30% match for the viral strains that are out now. But still that vaccine still helps reduce length and severity of illness. On the right-hand side, I just posted that the influenza deaths, I just wanted to make sure we all remember that influenza can be very, very severe, obviously. 139 deaths this season, and 6 are among children, those pediatric deaths. One thing that is on our website you can look at is that the DPH had a pediatric advisory that came out to 14 just a few days ago. And it was that Massachusetts and United States clinicians have been treating children, have observed a possible increase in the number of cases of children with influenza with neurological complications compared to the prior seasons. And what they describe are seizures, encephalopathy, encephalitis, and acute necrotizing encephalopathy. So some really tough stuff. Let's see. Oh, so this is a slide that I've enjoyed putting together. Thank you, Patty. Amy, I don't know remember Patty's last name, but I thank her for putting the numbers of the historic ledgers in Northampton into an Excel spreadsheet. So I took a few minutes the other day and looked at 1918 just to see what was going on then. And so I didn't have much time and I don't have great skill, but I went to 1918 and I looked at January and there was no influenza. I looked at March. So I put out March for you and you can see what infectious disease is there. Nothing until September. And then September, that's when all the infections started with the influenza, which was an H1N1 type A influenza. And you can see that it came out full force in the younger age bracket. It said something about the Clark School, that a lot of cases were there and that they actually stopped cataloging because there were so many cases. So I don't know. Have you guys seen that before?
No, this is great. It's really
Yeah, isn't
great.
that fun? Yeah. So thank you, Patty. I want everyone just to remember that flu season is continuing. You know what? I'm sorry. Yeah. So this slide up top is the peak month of flu activity. And you can see over time, that's from 1983 to 2024. February is typically the highest, and then it has that tail. So we're still in flu season. It's going to continue. So it's still time, and there's still a need to get vaccinated for your flu shot. If you haven't had it already, that's a one time per season. We have upcoming clinics here in council chambers. On the right-hand lower side, that's a little snippet of our website. Maybe I should have gotten more of it, but if you go to Easy Google Northampton Vaccine Program, it'll take you to this slide, to this webpage, and you can sign up for a vaccine, or you can call us at 587-1214. Other places that are giving vaccines are obviously pharmacies. We still have a homebound program, so anyone with a barrier to accessing clinics, give us a call. We'll come out and give you a shot. And I want to give a special thank you to Dr. Levin, our medical director, who has been working with us to make our immunization program as wonderful and robust as it is. I'm really proud of what you do, and thank you very much, Joanne. I appreciate all your work.
My pleasure. You do all the work.
Well, it is teamwork, I'll tell you that.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
If somebody has already gotten the flu, or particularly a child, and is over it without complications, do you still recommend that they get vaccinated for this season?
We do, and you're asking a good question. I don't know how long between having the virus and that immunity stays and getting that shot. I don't know if anyone else knows that. I'll tell you, with COVID, I know that because COVID is year-round, people are getting it, but typically we're not vaccinating after flu season, but this year we truly are.
Okay,
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
And Jen, just a quick one. Do we have an effective rate of this vaccine for this strain of flu?
My belief is that I looked and I couldn't find it. So it might be out there. I don't think the CDC is saying how effective it is. Yeah. I think the Southern Hemisphere, they said it was about 30%. Was that your question?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've heard the 30%
You have?
consistently. No, just consistently about flu.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we track that or not, or Joanne, if you know. Yeah.
That's something that the CDC tracks. They look at the strains that circulate and compared to what's in the vaccine. And sometimes there's a really good match, and sometimes it's not a great match.
Yeah.
This year, it's not a great match. But if you happen to get one of the strains that's in the vaccine, it's certainly to your benefit.
Yeah.
But you can't predict that.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure how much data and recommendations are being released from CDC right now. They're very
I don't know
restricted
that either.
in what they can release. So I would expect a delay at best in what we're able to get from them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another Mass DPH advisory came out early February, and it is about enhanced surveillance. So this is enhanced surveillance for H5N1 avian influenza in people in Massachusetts. and they provide guidance and they prioritize subtyping of certain specimens. So if you have had flu-like symptoms and within the last 10 days had some kind of contact with an ill or a dead animal or bird, tell your clinician, because if it comes back subtype A, no, it's type A, they may subtype it to see if it's a bird flu. So that was an advisory that came out. Did I say that correctly, Joanne?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then,
Jennifer,
yes,
since we don't have CDC's full help, I did a quick search on how long after the flu you can get
Oh.
the vaccine. And I'm quite surprised. This is Dr. AI speaking, of course, but it's generally recommended to wait at least 48 hours after recovering from the flu before getting a shot. This allows your immune system to fully recover from the previous infection. I've never heard of only a 48-hour window. It also says if you have a mild case, you might still be able to get the flu shot while you're sick. So if that is to be believed, apparently there are not the issues with vaccination soon after infection that there might be with other conditions. Caveats, it's Dr. AI.
yeah, yeah. Oh, good. No, thank you. I appreciate that. Final things with vaccination: wash your hands, clean surfaces, and antivirals still work. And then I'm just going to give it a quick overview of COVID, which sounds so weird to say that it's going to be quick. But here on the slide that we have still COVID vaccine for all ages, 6 months and up. You can get that second dose if you're 65 and older after 6 months. So there'll be a spring booster, and immunocompromised people can get second and even third doses if you speak to your practitioner, and that's at eight weeks after your last vaccine. So these are the last two slides, and I wanted to talk about bird flu. And again, the more I read, the more I realized there's so much out there. It's just changing weekly. It's coming at us really fast. So
Excuse me, before you get into bird flu, which is
yes,
a big topic, I just want to, I did my AI search for should someone who's had the flu get vaccinated for flu. And according to ACIP, which is a reliable organization, recommends that individuals who have recently recovered from acute illness, including the flu, can receive the flu vaccine as long as they are no longer acutely ill. The CDC Yellow Book also supports this, stating that minor illnesses are not contraindication to vaccination. Receiving the flu vaccine after recovering from influenza can help protect against other strains of the virus that may circulate later in the season.
yeah, that's great.
There we go.
Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Here's bird flu. This slide is for a national case update. The data on this slide is compiled from when we started back in March. I wrote February, so maybe it is February, but I think it's supposed to be March. I apologize. 2024 until the present date. Those are the animals and birds detected on the right-hand column. That's what has been reported. There's probably a lot more out there. If you go to the USDA site, you can see a list of different animals and birds since 2022, and it's quite long, and it has what's spreading through waterfowl, and it's going into mammals such as cats. There's been 80 cats, deer, bears, sea mammals, raccoons, and recently a black rat was identified in California, February 14th. But that's what we have since the last year, since that cow was first detected in Texas in March. On the lower left-hand side, I have human cases, that's 69. One reported death, that was in Louisiana, someone with some comorbidities. I think they were a little bit older, and they were exposed to a backyard flock. Those 69 people were exposed and caught the vaccine, the virus through different sources there. You can see that it's 41 cattle. sorry, I'm trying to sort of move things around here. They had close contact with infected cattle and their milk, 23 poultry farms and culling farms, 2 other animals, which I couldn't find, and then 3 unknown cases. And that's the latest MMWR. That was the one that was frozen for a few weeks and then was released a few weeks ago. And those 3 unknown cases suggests some kind of spillover from dairy cattle into humans that has gone undetected.
I know that 2 of those unknown cases were from California, which was doing a study of all their influenza A's, and they just took a certain percentage of them and subtyped them, and they found 2 cases in 2 children with bird flu and had no known exposure. It was just from just doing a general study of all a whole lot of flu specimens. I don't know what the 3rd one was.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go back. Sorry. I hope I'm not making anyone seasick. Symptoms for the bird flu, they say mild to severe, upper respiratory symptoms like cough, sore throat, runny, stuffy nose, fever, feeling feverish, but it can run from mild to severe, but most reports state that the cases are very mild. But the Daily and the New York Times, Dr. Levin, that you sent to me, the physician there was talking about mild symptoms and talking about the conjunctivitis. And this physician said it's not like the typical conjunctivitis, like the gunky, runny, itchy eyes. It's actually like microhemorrhaging. So it's really concerning. So I don't know what mild is. I just don't think there's a lot of information out there on that. So then moving on to bird flu in Massachusetts, a lot of this information that I'm going to be telling you is from Dr. Katie Brown. She's our state epidemiologist, and she would want you to know that even with all the virus we see in wild birds, the risk to humans still remains low. And where are we seeing it in Massachusetts? Well, wild birds, and this is from a slide, multiple mass mortality events in wild birds in Massachusetts. The current outbreak of the bird flu is the largest Massachusetts has ever seen. Mostly geese and swans have been affected, raptors with hawks, owls, and eagles that consume other birds. And then just a note that songbirds and perching birds that come to our feeders, juncos and, you know, the cardinals, titmice, the feeders tend not to be affected by avian flu. So there's that qualifier, tend not to be, yeah. In mammals in Massachusetts, wild mammals, those that scavenge on birds can be affected, like fox. Cattle herds in Massachusetts are tested monthly, no positives yet in Massachusetts, knock on wood. A side note, the USDA is testing milk silos, and they're not doing that in Massachusetts yet, but I believe they should be getting around to that. My understanding is that Massachusetts MDR and DPH is testing individual farms. No cats infected in Massachusetts that we're aware of. Domestic birds, 1 backyard flock in Plymouth County was tested positive. A lot of birds may be asymptomatic and so no signs of illness, but many birds typically and you need to monitor for lethargy, change in behavior, and anorexia. So now getting into prevention. Hopefully we'll never get to the point where the virus has all the mutations that it needs to set off a human pandemic. Right now, DPH is low, but we certainly want to continue surveillance and precautions. So just one thing we're thinking about in the DHHS public health nurses, we're definitely in more communication with DPH. We have weekly or biweekly seminars, but lots of emails and communication. So that started up in the last month, I'd say. Again, we have a strong vaccine program here that we can see expand if we need to. My understanding of vaccine is that Moderna has been given a large grant and they're working on an mRNA vaccine. There is some national stockpile, but not enough to treat the country. At one of the Maven webinars, I heard someone say, and I picked up on that because it wasn't the main topic, but they were starting packaging for bird flu surveillance. So we have all these packages that we look at, tuberculosis and pertussis. So they have that in the works so we can continue surveillance. And then just some things for public, tips that we can talk about the public. And I think more scenarios will be coming up. Keep pets safe. Dogs and other pets should always be leashed and away from wildlife. Cats are highly susceptible to highly pathogenic avian influenza and may die from infection. Cat owners in affected areas should keep their pets indoors and prevent exposure. Hunters, that's going to be something that we'll have to be thinking about whenever the season comes up. That'll be in the fall, I believe, but I don't know what hunting seasons are. But that's a group that needs to be following best practices. Eating wild game meat is generally considered safe. Hunters should handle processed game in the field and keep your dogs away from retrieving sick birds. So these are sort of things I hadn't thought about until I started reading today. Avoid raw milk for yourself and pets. The CDC and DPH has always said that. Pasteurization kills the virus. Avoid raw meat and cook food. And then reporting dead birds, report sick or dead seabirds. If you find 5 or more wild birds or other species at a single location, please report them. You can go to our webpage and there's a form that you can fill out. It's also on DPH. If you find 1 dead bird, you can use glove and a shovel, double bag the bird and put it into the trash. I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit just to talk about cats. I think that's going to come up a lot. Don't feed cats raw milk or raw pet food. Signs and symptoms of cats incubation, I found, is 1 to 14 days after exposure. Lethargy, anorexia, respiratory signs. The MMWR Today came out with a new research article that 2 indoor domestic cats were detected to have H5N1 in dairy workers' homes that declined to be tested. There's some other cat articles I put on the DPH website, the nursing DHHO's website, if you want to look at it, recommended from Dr. Katie Brown, and it speaks to vets being careful handling sick animals. So I think that's what I have. I would refer people to our website to really look at more precautions. What I have here on the bottom left are eggs. And just the last thing I wanted to say is the FDA and USDA oversight commercial sales. It's making the price go up with the culling of flocks, but when they're stored and cooked properly, they're fine. When I looked at roadside egg sales, if they're safe, I couldn't land on anything specific. So I think a lot of information is going to be coming out. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jen. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we'll move on. Meredith, are you back?
We're
You're
back. Yeah. Sorry. That was crazy. Dr. Levin, I was wondering if we should do the presentations before we do the discussion on the draft regulation.
Yeah, because otherwise
yeah.
it's gonna get really late.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's so is Ken Elstein here?
Yep.
Oh yes, Ken is here. Do you want to make him a co-host so he can
You
speak?
got it.
So for our next presentation, we'll have Ken Elstein, who's on the Belchertown Board of Health, wanted to talk to our Board of Health to discuss supporting the nicotine-free generation movement. And we've discussed the nicotine-free generation theory, and it's a policy that was passed in several other communities in Massachusetts so far, and we have talked about it. Ken, welcome. Yeah, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Levin, and thank you for putting nicotine-free generation on your agenda tonight. Also, special thanks to all of you in public health for making this your career. It's really important, essential for us, as we learned in the last presentation particularly. Anyway, I'm Ken Elstein. I'm a member of the Belchertown Board of Health. I'm also a past president of the Hampshire County Select Boards Association, and I have a bunch of other former titles. In December, Belchertown joined the now 14 municipalities that approved nicotine-free generation. Beginning over 7 weeks ago, tobacco vendors in Belchertown were prohibited from selling nicotine products to anyone born in 2004 or later. To my knowledge, we've received no complaints so far from the public, zero. Most people would agree that we, especially boards of health, should do whatever we can to prevent young people from getting addicted to nicotine. A major weakness in our events is that over 21s share nicotine with their teenage and preteen friends. Many people begin a lifetime of nicotine addiction before they reach 21. I will keep this short, as my main goal is to encourage you to consider this and put this on as an agenda item as soon as you can. First, the medical issues. I suppose that I'm the only person in this meeting who actually read the first U.S. Surgeon General's report on smoking and health when it first was published in January 1964. Some of you weren't even born in 1964. The arguments in support of MFG were all laid out there in 386 pages after a review of thousands of articles. It was all there 61 years ago. Of course, there've been a library full of more recent peer-reviewed studies, but they all confirm the point that we need to prevent our kids from becoming addicted to nicotine. Second, the legal issues. Our municipalities are legally allowed to approve nicotine-free generation, period. Yes, we have in the meeting legal scholars, but you don't need to accept their legal analysis. The lawyers who matter the most, the 5 judges of the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, unanimously threw out every single objection that Big Tobacco presented. It is settled law. And it was following their decision that 13 communities approved nicotine-free generation, with quite a number of others in various stages of consideration. Third, the economic issues. These are so-called objections that are raised by lobbyists and other defenders of big tobacco. They never talk about the dangers of nicotine because they can't. They never talk about the hundreds of thousands of human tragedies because they can't. There's a wide range. Forbes magazine estimates that the average smoker spends over $3,200 per year on nicotine products, some more, some less. That's money that could be spent at other businesses, at Thorns and the other stores and restaurants on Main Street, or at the Pie Bar in Florence, my personal favorite. Or that money could be spent at the Calvin or the Iron Horse or the Academy of Music. Actually, Forbes went ahead and showed how that money could cover the cost of college if properly invested. Overall, reducing nicotine addiction will help local businesses. Overall. There's also the tax burden that we all share. One good estimate is that an average household in Massachusetts spends an additional $1,117 in taxes each year for smoking-related expenses. I suppose that should make everyone angry, but not as much as the disease and death our neighbors experience. Fourth, so what are we left with? We're left with politics. A tiny town in Franklin County, I won't name it, but I do have it in writing, told me their select board is not interested and they don't want to get involved. Statewide legislation will be needed to protect those kids, their kids. And your vote will encourage the legislature to act. Less than a decade ago, Northampton was an early leader in support of Tobacco 21, raising the age to 21 from 18, acting before the legislature. Other cities look to Northampton for your continued leadership. For every month that we postpone NFG statewide, some new teens or preteens will become addicted to nicotine unnecessarily. We don't want that next kid to be a student at Northampton High or Smith Voc. One final point. Somewhat by coincidence, I testified at a public hearing in Amherst 2 weeks ago. Last week, I met with the South Hadley Board of Health, and now we're here in Northampton. These are the homes of all 5 colleges. I met a young woman a couple of weeks ago who graduated last month from UMass. She said every one of her friends vapes. The young women at Smith College mostly start at age 18, but they share dorms and classes and activities with over 21 seniors. Right now, those seniors can buy and share nicotine with their under 21 friends. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we could work together here in Hampshire County and save the students of all 5 of the 5 colleges from nicotine addiction? Personally, I never met my own grandfather, who died at age 41 of cancer, and Grandpa Dan never met me. In my 60s, I had the wonderful experience of meeting grandchildren, and they met me. We should give the kids growing up right now in Northampton their very best chance to meet their own grandchildren. This board, sitting here tonight, can do that. So please don't delay considering this any more than you feel is absolutely necessary. Perhaps you could even vote tonight to have an NFG draft ready for a public hearing at your next meeting. My own Belchtown Board of Health voted its approval on the very same night that we had our public hearing, even deciding that night which text version we would actually vote on. Please do not allow the perfect to be the enemy of the very good. We are saving lives, and thank you. I should add there are various experts here on Zoom if you have any questions now, or we could follow up later. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming. And I think in addition to the discussion of the NFG, I love having our boards of health talk to each other, which we don't tend to do. I think that's a great thing to start. So we have brought up this question. We tabled it because just to get a little more of a feel for what was going on out there. Any other board members have questions for Ken right now?
Dr. Levin, I just want to mention, I'm sorry, that we actually wanted to pass our regulation with the inclusion of restricting oral nicotine pouches immediately, so then we could have more time to talk about this topic.
Right, we have a draft ready to go. So we wanted to pass some other things to get the nicotine pouches done, and then this would be our next topic. Go ahead, Suzanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, Ken, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thanks for your presentation. You mentioned a small town that shall remain nameless in Franklin County that told you they weren't interested. Did they give any reason why they weren't interested?
Well, there were a few, can you hear me? Yes. There were a few things. First of all, they don't even have a Board of Health. They have Board of Board of Selectmen actually act as the Board of Health. A lot of the small towns do not even have a Board of Health. And they felt that they also don't have any dealers. They don't have any tobacco licensees. So we've been going around to all 351 municipalities throughout the state because, first of all, we want the support, but it's also really important in order to get the legislature to act. In order to pass Tobacco 21, raising the age from 18 to 21, it took 175, essentially exactly half of the 351 municipalities, to pass it before the legislature got its act in order. So we're trying to get as much support as we can, particularly here in Western Massachusetts. I mean, there's a meeting simultaneously going on in Somerville. I mean, same kinds of conversations. But that was they felt that it was more a political thing than a health thing. And we do find sometimes that select boards and city councils and the like are less interested in health than boards of health. But of course, they have different mandates and agendas.
Thank you.
I'm giving you an answer that was in extrapolating on 2 or 3 sentences in an email.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mm,
Cynthia?
Just I'm not sure if it's well, it's a question for anybody that can give me an answer to this. So I sort of go on this continuum of nicotine-free generation. And then I think, let's just get rid of all the licenses. And now I'm reading a lot in the literature, as recently as the New York Times on Sunday, that there's these theories now about how it's really all about combustion of nicotine that is the problem, as opposed to, we're talking about eliminating vaping, and we thought at one point in time vaping was going to help people quit, and then we found out that that wasn't really true, and now there's science and research out there saying that it is helping people. It's helping people not be addicted to nicotine, and I'm talking about as a public health issue. Okay, so that it's healthier to vape than it is to smoke cigarettes because of this combustion thing. Has anybody heard this logic? Read anything about it? And I'm just seeing how that way falls into this. Yeah, Ken, thank you so much, Ken.
Well, obviously, if you're not smoking, you're going to have less secondhand smoke, and there are hundreds of thousands of deaths from secondhand smoke. I'm going to throw this to some of the. Is there anybody here who would like to pick it up? And we have quite a number of experts here. Maureen, could you call on her?
We weren't prepared to do this in our meeting. This is not our usual protocol, but we'll go ahead.
Well, the question was asked.
Maureen?
Sure. I just would like to add to what Ken said, that nicotine is a poison. If you look up the definition of nicotine in the Oxford Dictionary, it's a poison. So when people talk to me about, is vaping better than smoking? I remind them that if you send your children out to play in traffic, maybe it's safer in a 2-lane highway than for them to play in a 4-lane highway. Nicotine is dangerous. It's addictive. We do know that there's dual use. People who tried to use vapes to quit smoking. That's a good thing to quit smoking, but then ended up as dual users. But the biggest concern is that most kids today don't smoke. And the industry will harp on this. Smoking's at an all-time low, but the nicotine initiation is from other products. It's from vaping, and I know later you're going to discuss nicotine pouches and whatever the next product is. And the industry is always coming up with new products. And if there is a public hearing down the road, I'd be happy to attend the public hearing and describe some of those products that are designed to appeal to kids. Like
Thank
vapes
you.
that have
Maureen, could you
videos.
Maureen, could you identify yourself, please?
Oh, sure.
your
Sorry
roles?
about that. Sure. Maureen Busby. I'm a regional tobacco prevention program coordinator in Eastern Mass, Malden, Melrose, Medford, Wakefield, Winchester, Stoneham, Reading. And 6 of my communities did adopt NFG.
Thank you. So my understanding is that with vaping, you don't get as much of the ash and some of the things that you get from smoking. So if you had to choose, vaping would be better, but people are still addicted to vaping, obviously. So Ken, when I first read about this NFG program, I thought it was the most brilliant thing ever. And then thinking a little bit about it, thinking about how it would progress over years. So it would be illegal for people 21 and over as they turn 21 for them to buy nicotine, and the age at which those people are not allowed would go up. So the following year, there would be 22-year-olds wouldn't be allowed because it's based on their birthday, right? So they would age. So a 40-year-old who wanted to smoke I guess my question is, I don't know if anybody's thought about the difference in the NFG program compared with changing the legal age of purchase to 30. Like, I don't know how many 30-year-olds would start smoking, probably very few, but somehow telling a 30 or a 50-year-old you're not allowed to purchase, but the 60-year-old across the street is allowed to purchase. Like, I don't know. There's something that feels funny about that. Have you thought about that?
Well, maybe that goes back to my last sentence about not letting the perfect interfere with the very good. My understanding is that almost nobody begins nicotine use, tobacco use after age 26. And what we're really trying to do here is effectively enforce the tobacco 21. I mean, they said the same thing at age 18. And by the way, when it went from 18 to 21, 19-year-olds who were already addicted to nicotine were suddenly not allowed to buy. We're not doing that here. We're not taking anybody who is legally allowed to obtain nicotine products. So it's a very slow, gradual change. I sometimes compare it to putting an acorn into the ground. The first year or two, it's not going to have much effect. But over the course of 40 years, it's going to really dominate the landscape. And I mean, other places are doing things, you know, the British Parliament passed a similar bill. The House of Commons, over 80% of them voted yes, of both the Labour and the Conservatives. And they started at 25, which means there's a jump, a whole group of people who will not be eligible. But it's kind of subtle also that we are not prohibiting people from buying cigarettes. We are preventing our licensees from selling tobacco products, nicotine products. So in Belchtown, we have 10 nicotine dealers. We're not preventing the 200 young people from buying. We're preventing the 10 dealers from doing it. That seems subtle, but you know, if you think about driving, if an 8-year-old drives a car, you're going to pull that kid over and probably detain her. But an 8-year-old smoking on the street, we're not going to stop. Maybe we should, but we're not. So you can fine tune this, but this is the program that's now out there. It's been approved by a whole bunch of municipalities. I mean, we didn't just invent this. This came from the MAHB, of the Mass Municipal Association. So if
The Mass
we do this
Association
probably,
of
but
Health
it's
Boards.
so slow. I'm sorry.
It's the Mass Association of Health Boards. It's a
Yes.
different association. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was first heard about this through the article that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Another feature of this is that it's most effective when communities do it together. One community here and one community there won't be very effective because people who want cigarettes will just go buy in another town. But it would be most effective, and I appreciate your coming here for this reason, if the contiguous towns participated. So I totally get that.
And did Amherst just make a decision about it as well?
No, they just held a public hearing last week to hear comment. But Ken, you were at that last week, correct?
I spoke there, yeah.
You spoke there, right? Another person spoke, which was really